Good morning, everyone. We are going to start by greeting each other. So please stand and say hello to your neighbors. And we can remain standing to begin our 3 refuges. I know we have a couple of new folks that are joining us here today, and I wanted to point out that one of the reasons that we hold our hands in what is known as Upjan Gaso, or some of you may think of it as there. The reason I've been told is we actually hold it this way or form the shape of a lotus to remind us that we are all on our journey from the mud to the surface. And together we say, I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. If you'll turn to the next page, on page 8, we are going to read the Heart Sutra together. Dhammaha prajna paramita hridaya sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna paramita perceived the emptiness of all 5 skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita, gate, gate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Dhamma prajna paramita hridaya sutra.
And for those of you who are new, at the end when we chant gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha, it means gone, gone, gone beyond, gone to the other shore. And that is to say, to go from this shore of suffering to the shore of nirvana. And I'll leave it about there for you to interpret exactly what that means. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. This morning's talk is going to be given by our head Dharma teacher, Kunga. And I wanted to remind you that the microphone isn't for any kind of system that we have set up in here. It's so the folks on Zoom can hear any questions you might have or any comments that you might have about the service when we do get to those points in our service. We will have a portion towards the end to talk about joys and concerns. And that's time for you to share good things that are going on in your life, wholesome things, or maybe some things that you're working on or need some help with or are struggling with. So please, we encourage you to participate. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kunga.
It's all yours, Kunga.
All right. Good morning. How's my volume? Can you hear me in the back row? Okay, great. Well, I wish I could be with you in person today. That was the plan. But I got COVID this week, and so I thought it would best not to show up, at least not in person. I'm feeling pretty good. I think this is the second time I've gotten COVID, and I've had all the vaccinations and all the boosters. So, it was relatively mild, I'd say. So, the title of my talk today is "What is Buddhism?" That's a big title, and I'm not really gonna cover that full title. I came up with that title because I had an experience over the last, over the fall, with different students attending services at the temple and asking about asking to do an interview. I think it was an assignment for a class, like a world religions class. They wanted to come to the temple, attend a service, and then afterwards interview one of the clergy, and they had a whole list of questions, 8 questions, and they were always the same questions. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. They're all using the same questions. Maybe I should just take these questions and make a Dharma talk out of it. So that was my initial intent. That's what I wrote up. And then when I started practicing, and I was like, well, this is like 3 Dharma talks. There's no way that I could just do this in 20 minutes. So I decided to cut it down. And so today, what I'm just going to deal with is one question off of there. And the question is, what is salvation? I thought that was an interesting question, right? Because it doesn't seem to come from a Buddhist perspective at all. It seems to come from a Christian perspective. Christianity is more concerned with salvation, I think, at least in the term that I normally think of. We next, in exactly a week, we'll be celebrating Christmas in our culture. And that's the birthday of Jesus Christ, the Savior, right, in Christianity. So Savior seems to be something that here in the West, we really associate with Christianity. It seems like a strange term to apply to Buddhism. But as I started to think about it and think about, we just had our Bodhi Day celebration about 2 weeks ago. That's the celebration of the Buddha's enlightenment. After his enlightenment, he gave his famous talk on the Four Noble Truths. And I started to think, maybe the Four Noble Truths really is a salvation talk. So I thought, well, that's what I'll talk about today. I'll talk about the Four Noble Truths. So just quickly, the Four Noble Truths are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, that's number 3. And 4th is the truth of the Eightfold Path, we'll say, okay? So now I want to do is kind of go through each of these in a little bit more detail. And then, as is my practice, then I talk about how we might utilize that information in our own life, in our own day-to-day life. So the first truth, the truth of suffering. So suffering is sometimes translated as dissatisfaction, dis-ease, or stress. I like stress because I think that stress is something we can relate to on a regular basis. Suffering seems really intense, right? Like, oh, you got COVID and it was really bad. You're really suffering from it, like a real physical thing, right? But suffering in this terminology is talking about physical and psychological. And this is about something that goes on every day of our life. We're always experiencing this discomfort. And the reason we experience this discomfort is in the second noble truth. But before I go there, I wanted to talk a little bit about an example. Imagine that you're at work and you get a promotion. Okay? So this promotion involves you learning how to do a new job, all the skills that are involved with that, new responsibilities, maybe you even have to go to a different place to actually do your work. But since this is a promotion, it doesn't bother you. All these stressors, you're just like, okay, you're excited about it, right? You're going to get more money, you're going to be more challenged. You're using your skills in a way that that they're there waiting to be used. So it's a good thing, right? But say, for example, you lose your job. You didn't want to lose your job, you're laid off. And now you got a new job and you have to learn all these skills. All of a sudden it's maybe not as exciting. You don't want to learn a new job. You don't want to go to a new place for work. You don't want to meet new people. You don't want to do something different. You were happy with what you're already doing before. And it's your perspective that's really changed. Okay. So these ideas, this dissatisfaction in life, which we talk about in the first noble truth, is really affected by your perspective on the events that are happening. So that's a really key, and we'll kind of go back to that with the fourth noble truth. So second noble truth, the cause of suffering. The cause of suffering is craving, okay? So if we think about this job example, we were craving for a new position. We were craving for a better job. We had a desire to work, to make more money, to do something that was more challenging or interesting to us. Okay, so that craving, until we actually got our promotion, maybe caused us some suffering, some discomfort. Like, when am I going to get that new job? I can't pay my bills with this income. And on the other side, if we had lost our job and we were learning something new, we might be thinking, we had a craving to stay where we were. We didn't want things to change. Why couldn't I just be still in my own job? Why can't I still be working with the same people that I liked? This salary is not as good as what I had. So craving is craving for things that we like not to change, or to get things that we think are going to make us happy, or craving to not lose what's making us happy. Craving to have things not change. Okay. So the third noble truth is the cessation of craving. That this is a real possibility. That's what the Buddha is teaching us. And so he experienced this through his own enlightenment. And then he did 50 years of teaching with his community, in which, and we have the documentation of those teachings in his life, which really demonstrate to us that this cessation of craving is possible. That there is a way to be more content with our life. And we can also look back on 2,500 years of Buddhist teachings, and hundreds of thousands of people have followed these teachings and found more happiness and less suffering in their life through that. So the fourth noble truth, the secret to the cessation of suffering, is really the Eightfold Path. Okay, so the Eightfold Path, I'm gonna go through it briefly, and then I'm going to kind of go back to the cessation of suffering and talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to go back to applying the Eightfold Path in our everyday life. So the Eightfold Path. So they use the term right, but we could also just say skillful. Right view, right intent, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Okay, or you could say skillful for all those different things. Okay, so these are 8 strategies, paths that we can utilize in our life in order to engage with the Eightfold Path, in order to create the ending of suffering, the ending of craving. So really, in salvation in Buddhism is following the Fourth Noble Truth, the Eightfold Path. Okay. So how does that work? How does the following the Eightfold Path end craving and then thereby end suffering? The First Noble Truth. So the result of following the Eightfold Path is to develop wisdom, develop a feeling of equanimity about life. If we go back to the Second Noble Truth, the reason that we crave and we have suffering from our cravings is because we don't really understand, or we don't really appreciate, or we don't really act as if we know how life actually works. We're acting, or we're thinking out of ignorance. So wisdom is the cure for ignorance. And the wisdom is applying to basically 3 things. Well, there's probably more than 3 things, but I'm just going to touch on 3 things. Wisdom means understanding impermanence, that everything in life is changing. So for example, as a human being, we're born, we grow old, we get sick, and we die. If we're thinking about things, we can say something is created, something is used, something wears out, and then it's broken, no longer useful. The second thing that wisdom helps us to realize is that everything comes about in life through causes and conditions. Okay, so if I look back at my aspirations to get a promotion, so one of the causes and conditions is I want to get a better job. Okay. If I don't do anything with that other than think it, it's not going to be a very strong cause for helping me to get a better job. But if I actualize that feeling through activities, I learn about my job, I practice, I get better, I have good relationships with the people I work with. I do what my boss says, they find me to be a good employee. Then it starts to be more and more causes and conditions that will help me to get that promotion. But all the causes and conditions aren't under my control. If I'm already at the highest point in my job and the only other place to go is my boss's job and he's not leaving, then there's not much chance I'm going to get a promotion no matter how much I want it or how much work I do. If our company is going down or, not doing well, and there's no money to provide any kind of promotions for the staff, and the staff's actually getting cut back, I might lose my job, even though I'm a great employee and I'm really doing everything I can to get a promotion, right? It's just outside my control. So causes and conditions, we have some effect in there, but we're not the only cause and condition going on. And then the third thing is interdependence. Everything in life is interconnected, interdependent with each other. So my wanting to get a good job is one part of the program. My place where I work, having a position that I can move into is another part. They're interconnected with each other. The place where I work, having the financial ability to offer additional positions to me because of the economy is another thing that's interconnected. So bringing wisdom to our practice means being aware of these things. And as we're aware of them, then that can affect what we crave for, and affect maybe our understanding and how much strength craving has in our life. And that brings about equanimity, the ability to look at your life, to understand causes and conditions, to understand interdependence, to understand impermanence. And because you understand those things, as life changes, as things don't work out the way you want, that's okay. You understand that's all right. That's just the way life works. So let's go back to the Noble Eightfold Path and talk about that in relationship to our lives. So, and I'm going to talk about it in relationship to working life, just to kind of keep the same simile going through the whole talk. And now for me, working life is social worker at hospice. But for you, working life might be being a student or some other type of job, in retail or in business or, in a factory. You might be retired, so your job might be being a retired person. Okay, but regardless of what your job is, you can apply the Eightfold Path to your job. Okay? Now, another way to think about the Eightfold Path is to break it up into 3 sections. Okay, you can think of the Eightfold Path as dealing with knowledge, wisdom, and ethics. Okay, so knowledge are the first 2 parts of the Eightfold Path. Knowledge has to do with our right view and our right intent. Now, right view is really simple. Right view, on the one hand, is just understanding the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so right there, so it's kind of neat the way that the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths are kind of intermingled, interdependent with each other. The fourth Noble Truth is the Eightfold Path. The first step of the Eightfold Path is the Four Noble Truths. Okay. Right intent is applying your understanding of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, to your everyday life. So for me, this is relatively easy because I'm a hospice social worker. So I'm working with people who have an obvious physical and mental suffering every day because they're dying. So when I meet with my patients and their families, I can think about that, how their craving for life is affecting their ability to accept the fact that they're dying. And I can use that information to help provide better support to those patients, to help to understand. It's not that it's my job to make them adjust better, but it's my job just to provide support, to them wherever they are, so they can get some comfort and maybe experiencing their feelings for themselves and figuring out how they want to deal with that. I'm also working with nurses in my job, and I might use the Four Noble Truths to consider the nurses that I work with, and when they're having a difficult time working with our patients. Sometimes we have patients who the nurse feels like this patient would feel so much better if they would just do this certain medical intervention. And it's so frustrating for them because they really crave for this person to feel better, that this person won't do it. They won't take the medicines on time. They won't take the medicines the nurse is prescribing, or the doctor's prescribing, the nurse is telling them to tell them. And the person has their own reasons for this, the side effects or whatever. But, part of my job is to kind of work with the staff that I work with and help them get more comfortable with understanding why the person is not doing what we say they should do. Why aren't they acting, rationally? Why aren't they just, doing what we say? Obviously we know best, right? So those are 2 parts of Noble Truth that I use that in my work. The next section, ethics, is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So, right speech is pretty simple, right? Am I telling the truth? Am I honest? Am I compassionate? Am I empathetic with my speech, with my patients, and with the staff that I work with? When I think about right action, it's more of like physically, what am I doing with my patients? Am I showing up for my visits? Am I showing up with my whole person? Am I being compassionate? Am I listening to them? And we can think about this with any position we might have in life, how important that is. Then when we work with other people, to actually show up and pay attention to them and listen to them, so that we can hear what they're trying to communicate with us. Right livelihood. So that's interesting, using right livelihood at your right livelihood. So right livelihood doesn't mean you have to work where you're reducing people's suffering in a very obvious way, like being in the medical field or being like a teacher, right? You could have right livelihood in whatever your job is. You can have right livelihood if you work in a factory. Any job you go to, there's a way to do that job that is helpful to the people you work with, that creates a good product, that makes you a pleasure to work with, that customers appreciate, So you can bring this idea of how can I be the best of whatever I am in whatever position you find yourself. It doesn't matter that you're not necessarily, feeding the hungry and curing the sick, it could be anything. So the next one, or the last one here, is wisdom, which has to do with right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So normally we apply this part, wisdom, to the cushion, sitting to in our meditation practice. Maybe at home, or maybe when we come to temple and we come to attend a service and we have a point of meditation. But really, the skills that we're practicing there, we can utilize throughout our life, and especially at work. So, right effort has to mean, how do I choose to be skillful at work? How do I choose skillful actions versus unskillful actions? Just like when I'm sitting on the cushion and I'm meditating and I'm deciding to follow my breath, and I use effort to keep doing that, and I don't become distracted or daydream. When I'm at my job, how do I maintain my presence with my patients? How do I actually be there for them, and be responsive to what they need? Not be thinking about my next patient I have to see, or not be thinking about the weekend and what I'm going to do over the weekend. And then that flows kind of right into right mindfulness, right? Being aware of the moment at each moment of our life and choosing to act in a way that promotes our spiritual practice or our skillfulness. So, let's go back to a job that's very different from mine, like being in a factory. We can provide mindfulness and doing that activity that we're doing for our job. We can do mindful walking when we're walking from one place to another at work. We can always follow our breathing as it goes in and goes out, regardless of what we're doing. And I do that a lot when I'm sitting with patients, especially, if a patient said something really challenging and you don't really know how to respond to that. A lot of times the best way to respond is not to say anything, just kind of sit back and listen, and I just go back to my breathing at that point. And then the last part is right concentration. Okay. So right concentration, on the cushion, that's maintaining the focus of our meditation, our single point of focus. At work, that is just keeping our eye on our job, making sure in each moment we're we're doing what we need to concentrate on. I noticed that my concentration practice really helps me, with writing reports at work, providing, concise and accurate information, not spending, we have a big meeting every week and we have to give a report on a whole bunch of patients. And the reports are supposed to just take like a minute or so. And I noticed that some people, when they have their minute, they tell us the same they always start out by telling us 5 minutes of the same thing that they tell us every single week. They really haven't figured out a way to be concise, and they really haven't figured out a way to tell us what's important, like how is the patient actually doing? How are interventions with the patients effective or not effective? Where are the patient in the dying process? So concentration can be really important just to help you kind of narrow down, focus, and just provide what's important. So I've been talking about the Eightfold Path as it points or relates to work, right? So we looked at all 8 parts of the path and related them to livelihood. And you could have done that to right intent or right view. Each one of the 8 parts of the path has the other 8 already in it. So there's actually 64 parts to the Eightfold Path, okay? 64 opportunities for you to practice that in your daily life each moment. So now I'm going to finish up this talk by going a little bit deeper and doing some like Dogen Zenji kind of thinking about this. Dogen Zenji is one of my favorite writers about Buddhism. I talk about him a lot. He likes to write about the transcendental view of life. We've been talking about very kind of mundane, ego-centered stuff. What do I do when I'm at work? How do I relate to people at work? This is all very kind of important stuff for our day-to-day life. But there's also this other aspect of life that we can consider, the transcendental aspect, the spiritual aspect, okay? So in order to go deeper into that, I want to talk a little bit about Dharma gates, okay? Whenever we say our Bodhisattva vow at the end, we say, Dharma gates are numerous, are endless. I vow to penetrate them all, okay? And one time, maybe about a year ago, we were doing like little discussion after service, and somebody said, what's the Dharma gate, right? Because we say it all the time. What does that even mean? What does it mean that Dharma gates are endless and I vow to penetrate them all? So Dharma is the Buddhist teachings, and Dharma is also everything in reality that makes up what we see. There's ancient Buddhist books that have long list of all the Dharma that make up different things. If we just think of the example of a human being, there's 5 dharmas or aggregates that make up a human being. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Just 5 things come together each moment to give us a sense of our human consciousness, okay? So these dharmas, when they come together and they give us this moment of consciousness, I'm going to say that's a Dharma gate. Okay, that's an opportunity for us to enter life because we're conscious and to penetrate that Dharma gate by actualizing one of these 64 elements of the Eightfold Path. Okay. So these Dharma gates, according to neuroscience, happen about 6 times a second, okay? So that means that in 1 minute, you have 360 opportunities to actualize the Eightfold Path, one part of the 64 parts of it, okay? So this is all about, when does salvation happen? So salvation in Christianity happens at the end of life. Salvation in Buddhism happens right now. And it already happened, and now it's happening again. And it's already happened again already. So it's constantly happening 6 times a second. But you have to make it happen. It's not a passive thing that just happens to you. You have to initiate one of these 64 elements of the Eightfold Path at this moment to make it happen. But don't worry, if you feel like you missed that moment, the moment you realize that you missed it, you got it. You're there, you can do it. You have that opportunity already. So good luck. I'm not going to do any questions because I went long, but I'll let Igesu take over for meditation.
Thank you, Kunga, for that wonderful talk. Prepare yourself for meditation.
right, so I think we are moving on to our announcements for today. Do we have somebody that's coming up to do announcements? Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jeremy, and I'm here to remind us this morning that the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple operates entirely on Dharma, which is the Buddhist practice of cultivating generosity through volunteered time and monetary donations. No one associated with the temple receives a salary or compensation of any kind. And if you would like to make a monetary donation, there are several ways you can do so. You can go to zengr.com/donate. If you're viewing on YouTube, you can click share more for the drop-down menu. There are Dana boxes at both entrances to the temple where you can make a monetary donation. And there are QR codes on the boxes that are linked directly to PayPal. And if you shop on Amazon Smile, if you shop on Amazon, there is Amazon Smile, which is you can sign up for and designate the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple as a beneficiary. A small portion of your purchase at no additional cost to you will go to the temple. So thank you all.
And I just realized that I'm doing things a little backwards today. Since we've implemented our new schedule, I don't think I've been here. November is kind of a busy time, so I apologize. I'll finish up with our normal announcements and then backtrack for a second. So in December, we have a couple other events that happen. We have our Radical Dharma Book Club, and it's the first Wednesday of each month, and it's joined via Zoom. Today, which is the third, today it's the third, it will be in the future. No, it's now going forward, the third Sunday of each month. We have our Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple board meeting, and Sanghas are invited to observe. It will be taking place after temple today, I believe starting at 11:30. 11:30 to 1 p.m. We also have Buddhist-based recovery meetings. Mondays, it's at the temple or join via Zoom. Wednesdays at the Alano Club, and Fridays at temple or Zoom. And for Sunday service, our holiday schedule, we do not have service next Sunday because of Christmas, nor do we have it the following Sunday because of New Year's. However, there will be a holiday twilight service this Thursday. Doors open at 6 p.m., I believe, and there will be a service from 6:30 to 7:30. We will be offering candles to light for whether it's for someone else, for yourself, for world peace, or whatever you'd like to light a candle for. We will have candles available with a donation of $1 to light a candle. But donations are not necessary. Please, if you'd like to put some prayers out there, we'd love to hear your prayers. And if you're not signed up for our weekly newsletter, get signed up. There's a lot of really good information in there, and that's how we like to stay in touch during the week. So I'm going to, are there any other announcements before I move on?
I have one at Igisu.
Okay, Jan does as well. So we're going to hand it over to Jan and then to Kunga.
I would just like to reinforce the newsletter, especially with winter weather we're in the midst of. Anyone on the newsletter will get a special notice if temple is canceled on that day. So that's another incentive to sign up. That's the main means of communicating the temple closure. Thank you.
So I just wanted to remind everyone about the Bodhisattva program that we'll be offering at the temple. January through the summer, I think at the graduation or ordination is in August, and that'll meet once a week on the second Saturday of the month. It's a way to deepen your practice. If you have to have had taken the precept class in order to take the Bodhisattva class, we'll be studying Shanadeva's Way of the Bodhisattva, Pema Chodron, translation and commentary on that. And also we'll be looking at the Satipatthana Sutra, the Sutra on the Four Grounds of Mindfulness, and really going into that with a lot of depth. So it should be a really good program if you'd like an opportunity to deepen your practice. There is a cost of $200, but we do not want that cost to be a barrier to anybody participating in the program. So when you register for the program, if there is an issue with the cost, just put a comment on there about that. Thank you.
And Kunga, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a prerequisite that you have taken the precepts class.
Correct. Yeah, and deadline is January 7th. First program meeting is January 15th. If that's a Saturday, I think that's right.
Yes. Thank you.
And I had one other thing. I did want to, if after we do finish up today, if you would like to, I'll be available online. If anybody wants to answer questions or talk about the Dharma talk, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. So I would like to backtrack to joys and concerns. I'm going to open up the floor for comments. Hey, if you've got questions, we can answer those too. But we'd like to celebrate any joys with you, or help work through any concerns you might have. So I believe David's got the microphone. So if you can raise your hand, and he'll come bring that to you so we can all hear you. Oh.
Yeah, so I wanted, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Igasu.
Go ahead. I can't see you.
So yeah, my concern, I have two concerns really. You know, I guess it's a joy and a concern, that I had COVID, that's not great, but it's been pretty mild, so that's good. My mother-in-law, we had to move her out of her apartment this week into assisted living because her memory is so poor. And every 6 seconds, she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know every 6 times a second, she doesn't know what's going on. So you can do something, and within the same second, she doesn't know what you just did. And that is really challenging and difficult for her and for us. So thank you.
I have a joy to share. Many of you may or may not know, but in my other life, I am an Irish dancing teacher. And I had a group of kids attend our Mid-America Regional Championships over the Thanksgiving weekend, which is why I haven't been here for so many weeks in preparation for that. And one of our teams, who is full of 8 and 9-year-olds, they placed 3rd place out of 10 teams. And, when you're thinking of children doing something like that, coming together and struggling together, really struggling at times together, and then at the end, and even questioning if this is something they really love doing anymore, but at the end of it, realizing that all of their hard work is being recognized. It was a really successful thing, especially for 2 particular students of mine who they were ready to throw in the towel. They were like, all right, the day's here. When this thing is over, I'm done. And all of a sudden, when their team got called up for 3rd place and they got to be recognized on stage, for them it was pure joy. And that's another reason why we do what we do in our lives. We push through our suffering to experience, and I hate to say push through. I think a better way of thinking of it is recognizing that suffering and knowing that sometimes putting the work isn't as joyful as we think it is. But then when we see that it can be joyful, our perspective switches in a way that will be life-changing. So that's a joy on my part.
Thank you. I thought since we weren't going to be here next Sunday for the holiday, that I would share joy and concern that are on my mind in the holiday season, and that it's a joy to be with family, to to come together at that time of year when everybody isn't normally together, and you get to see maybe friends and family, and the sort of holiday spirit creates kind of a goodwill. If I'm out shopping, I've noticed that everybody's kind of in a good mood, and that's a joy to me, that the good mood, the goodwill, seeing friends and family in a holiday spirit. And my concern is with the same, and it mirrors that in such that everybody doesn't have that. And some people, it's a particularly painful time of year. And so we should all hold those folks in our heart also during this time of year. And if we can help them through it because it's difficult for them, remember to do that.
Thank you for that wonderful and compassionate reminder. All right, with that, we are going to close today with our gathas. If we can please stand. And together we say, for all unskillful action ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if this side of the room, we'll turn to this side of the room. And bow. So at the end of the service, just a reminder to straighten up your cushions. There'll be a couple folks coming around to collect these, or if you feel like helping with collecting them yourself, please do. We'll be returning them over to our pile over here to clean up. And then I believe we're gonna tidy up we gotta be kind of out of here by 11:30, and if we can stick around for the board of directors meeting. We have a couple meetings going on here after service.